May surprise many of you to know that I am a nerd. I will give everyone a moment to recoup from the shock of that knowledge. I enjoy playing video games as part of that, and this was just announced. God of War Laufey, or however they're going to pronounce it, that's already been a thing that's discussed because you only really hear her name pronounced once in God of War 2018. And in this game, you play as Atreus' mother and Kratos' wife, Laufey. Seems to be the pronunciation that the God of War games are going with at the moment, or at least it's the one I keep hearing whenever anyone talks about this. Now, this game basically takes place as God of War 2018 is happening, taking place in what is called the Neverwhen, which seems to be the afterlife for deities, and apparently you're going to get a cube companion. Given the context of what I've been told, the Neverwhen is basically supposed to be the afterlife for all of the gods, implies some things about Frank. And although the game is still considered to be in early development, we see these two within the first 10-minute gameplay we saw a little bit. This seems to be the person who's running the show, and this is Sekhmet, which implies a lot. Sekhmet is obviously a lion-headed goddess within Cometicism, but I'm wondering how deep into the mythology it's going to go, because Sekhmet is actually a form of the goddess Hathor, who, no matter what iteration and time period you're talking about, is extremely important. But specifically, Sekhmet is like her bloodlusted form, which heavily implies humans screwed up somehow. And I do really enjoy the, very obviously Egyptian look, but they do seem to make her, while obviously feminine bodied, somewhat androgynous. At least to, my eyes. I should probably watch the 10-minute thing again. But we also see this guy, who is Begsi. I'm probably mispronouncing that pretty heavily. Who is both a Mongolian and kind of Himalayan in general war god and a lord of war in Tibetan Buddhism. Interestingly enough, canonically, the Mongolian god and the Tibetan variation, canonically the same individual. I'll have to look it up, but one of the Dalai Lamas, like one of the earliest, I believe, somehow defeated him and made him a protector of Buddhist, but it was specifically him going up against the Himalayan war god. And even among war gods, damn impressive. For those interested, he also has a Cretaceous period Neoceratops named after him. We already have so many questions, but we're getting more or less what I think a lot of people wanted, which is like seeing more mythologies. Like, we're technically getting the Egyptian one that was like sort of hinted at us, as well as a lot of people really wanted. So this is a very interesting, basically side adventure within the God of War franchise. I have, of course, already seen a lot of complaining, like how dare they make the main character of a God of War game a woman, especially one that a lot of people are apparently complaining is unattractive, but the usual bizarre incel arguments. Now, some things have been brought up that I do believe are legitimate possible gripes with it. Some people are saying that this looks kind of generic, and the inclusion of Frank here is, millennial quirkiness, which, as a millennial, I guess I'm biased in not necessarily caring about it, depending on how it goes about, how long the game even is. Because again, this is technically still in early development. Some people are mad that it's even called a God of War game, even though it's a game that obviously exists in that franchise. So my things are just in general, why is he here? Is she going to meet any of the Greek gods? And how into Kemetic myth are we getting with this character? And honestly, getting a more obscure God of War is really interesting. Especially, like, these are both gods of war, but in such different aspects. It's really cool. Because she is also associated with medicine and is more of like the protector of those who go to war, as well as obviously being, bloodthirsty and all that. And obviously, here we're getting a very interesting interpretation of Begsy's design, but I can kind of see why they went this way, as to keep it in within, the other realm and general vibe of the God of War series since 2018. There's very interesting things that could definitely be going on. I'm wondering if we're going to get more backstory on basically the relationship that Laufey and Kratos had. I'm also wondering if they're going to acknowledge that within Nordic myth, that, okay, so spoiler warning, I guess, but we learned that Atreus is Loki. And in the myth, he is literally called Laufey's son. Laufey is his mother. But Kratos is never referred to by Loki's mythological father's name, which is Farbauti. So a small part of me really wants that to be acknowledged in some way. Yeah, there's so much that can happen, especially with how little we actually know, even with, I believe it was like 10 minutes of gameplay that was expressed, and I definitely need to watch again. But ultimately, we are at a minimum of months away from seeing either more of the development process for this game or a release of any kind. I'm optimistic, and I think even if this is just like a short, side adventure that we go through, it holds us over while they're remaking the original God of War games and possibly making a sequel, and especially because this takes place in the time period of God of War 2018, we might get specifically a trilogy with, Atreus's mother. So yeah, there are some valid concerns, a lot of really annoying opinions, but a lot of possibilities that I'm at least optimistic for.